Hello, this is Kevin with Bangert Inc., and today we're going to take a look at the two most popular reasons why My Assistant stopped sending emails. So let's say that My Assistant's been doing like direct deposit notifications perfectly, no issues been going on, and then just all of a sudden you notice that people are not receiving their direct deposit notifications, or you notice that a particular task isn't being sent on a, when it's supposed to. One of the reasons for that is there's services on the server that have to be running. And every once in a while, I've had cases where maybe a server updated some Windows updates and restarted. And during that restart process, for whatever reason, those services just didn't start up. So one of the most common things are just the services need to be restarted. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So I have to be on the server. If you can remote directly into your server, great. If not, you might need your IT people, some IT help to remote into the server. The server we are looking at is the Sage server, so whichever server is hosting your Sage data. I'm going to go off and look at my run here. And I'm going to put services MSC to pull up my list of services. The services that I'm concerned about start with ISD. ISD admin sender service and ISD admin task service. They may be running, they may not be running. Even if they say it's running, I'd still stop them. So if they don't say it's running, hot diggity, you could just go in there and start it. Sometimes I've seen them say running, but they're really not running and so forth. So I always go in and I just right-hand click and I stop the first one. I go in and stop the second one, give it just a couple seconds, and then I'm going to turn around and start them again. So I'm going to go down to my task service first, and I'm going to start that one. Once it comes up, it says running. I'm going to then go ahead and go back and say, start my sender service. In that case, that should have both services running. As long as I say running over here, then I'd go back to My Assistant, try to resend your direct deposit notifications or whatever the task is that you're having issues with, and that should, fix it if that was a particular case. If that wasn't the issue, the next most common, which is probably the first question I probably should have asked, was, has anyone changed anything about your email system? So this is a common one, but the next common one is maybe you've updated your password for your Windows email. Maybe you've implemented two-factor authentication. Those type of things will break the My Assistant that it cannot communicate with your email server anymore. The way we fix those, there again, on the Sage server, let's start with the workstation. You can do this one from the workstation. So from your workstation of whichever designer user you've got, if I go and take a look at my search here, and I'm going to just pull up My Assistant itself. Old versions of My Assistant will not have this function I'm going to show you. Anything that's, I don't know what it is, I think it's 22 and greater, will have this feature. Mine's going to come up with some messages that I don't have Outlook set up and so forth, which I don't care about. So I'm just going to go ahead and go past these so I can get into my Assistant. So in My Assistant, if I go to File, Options, one of the things that they've added to the designer version is it lets you see the server settings. So this is really nice because a lot of the time, maybe the designer user, I may not have access to remote in the actual server itself or something of that nature. So this is something that you can actually do from your designer user to reset emails and so forth, or email passwords. If I just knew that our password had changed, I can click right in this cell here for password, put my new password in there, hit test. It's going to either come back pretty quick and tell you, like in this case here, it's saying my email settings are configured properly, or it's going to come up and say that they're not configured properly. So if they come up and say they're configured properly, bang, you're past it. You can close this up and go on and, tell it to resend those tasks or whatever day it gets sent. If that doesn't fix it, the next thing to think about is, has the company implemented two-factor or multi-factor authentication? A lot of companies are implementing multi-factor authentication for emails. If they do, you need to go into your email system, tell it to generate a application password, and it will give you a password for this. So if you Google, if you're using like Microsoft 365, you can say, Microsoft 365, generate application password. It'll give you the steps. Pretty basic, but it basically is where I can go off and just tell it that I'm doing a special application. It'll basically generate me a password. I could put that password in here and then I could test it. So it's a little different password than what you normally use for your email. But since it don't have that ability to go back and ask for all the second authentication methods and things of that nature, that's kind of a rule that Microsoft has got set up where somebody can generate a unique password for this application and utilize that for products like My Assistant to send out on. In some cases, you might run into a case where maybe you've changed your email server where your configuration is changing. You might have to change the outgoing server or, the outgoing port or something of that nature. But in a lot of cases, that's probably going to remain the same. It's almost always a user's updated their password or they've implemented two-factor where I need to generate a application password. That's how I can do it through Designer. If you did not have a new enough version, you went to File, you went to Options, you didn't see that option that I just showed you. In that case, you will actually need to remote into the actual server itself. The server being the main system that hosts the Sage data. May need IT support to help with that. Once on the server, if I look for My Assistant things again, one of the programs that will be on the server is called My Assistant Configuration Manager. My Assistant Configuration Manager has a lot of similar looks with what I just saw. Under email accounts, it's the same screen we just looked at before. So there again, I could put in a new password. If I updated my password, I'm going to hit test to make sure it works, or I'm going to go off and generate me a application password on my email system and then come back and put that particular unique password in. And that should get me back up and going on that. And that should resolve any email connection issues for your My Assistant. Thanks for watching.